In 1905, Belle da Costa Greene was enlisted by J.P. Morgan to serve as his personal librarian. A close bond developed between them, soon giving rise to scandalous rumors of a romantic involvement. She ultimately transformed his collection into one of the world's preeminent libraries, accumulating substantial wealth in the process. However, Belle harbored a shocking secret, one whose revelation could have led to utter ruin. Belle da Costa Greene was born Belle Marion Greener on November 26, 1879 in Washington, D.C. Yet the name she received at birth would not be the one etched into historical memory. As we will discover shortly, she later adopted a different name for particular reasons. Belle's father was Richard T. Greener. He achieved a remarkable milestone as the first African-American to graduate from Harvard College in 1870. This pioneering accomplishment paved the way for an influential career. He subsequently became a distinguished educator, political advocate, and a leader within Washington, D.C.'s Black community. His reputation was further solidified when he later served as Dean of Howard University's law faculty. Belle's mother was Genevieve Ida Fleet Greener, hailing from a prominent and forward-thinking Washington family. She too was an educator and a musician, ensuring that Belle grew up in an environment rich in intellectual pursuits, artistic expression, and ambition, an upbringing that significantly shaped her formative years. Genevieve and Richard had a total of 6 children following their marriage in 1874. Belle's early life, while liberal and relatively prosperous for an African-American family of the era, was also marked by upheaval. Her father's career was on an upward trajectory, securing increasingly influential positions in government and education, notably within the U.S. Treasury's Comptroller's Office and as Secretary of the Grant Monument Association. Meanwhile, Belle and her siblings received an advanced education at home in Washington, far surpassing the typical schooling of the period. The family also socialized with many leading African-American intellectuals and figures of the day, such as Frederick Douglass and W.E.B. Du Bois, immersing them in the heart of the struggle for racial advancement. However, the family unity was soon shattered by a devastating discovery. Richard learned that his wife, Genevieve, had classified their family as white on a census form. For a man dedicated to civil rights, this was a profound betrayal, not just of his professional work, but of their fundamental identity. This led to their separation. Although they never legally divorced, Richard relocated to Asia, accepting a position in Vladivostok, a territory recently acquired by the Russian Empire following the Second Opium War against China. There he entered into a bigamous marriage with a Japanese woman named Mishi Kawashima, with whom he had 3 children. Following their parents' separation, Belle and her siblings subtly altered their identities. They removed the R from their surname, changing it from Greener to Greene. Belle herself dropped her middle name, Marion, and adopted da Costa to imply Portuguese ancestry, a means of accounting for her slightly darker complexion while presenting as European. Her mother followed suit, changing her maiden name to Van Vliet to suggest Dutch heritage. They managed to successfully adopt these new identities and pass as being of European descent despite their African-American background, as the family had relatively light skin. Over time, these fabricated identities became deeply entrenched, effectively severing ties with their African-American roots. Belle and her siblings also distanced themselves from their father. Although he lived until 1922, Belle rarely saw him during her adult life. In 1896, Belle was offered a place in a scholarship at the Northern Seminary for Young Ladies in Massachusetts. She studied there for the next 3 years, followed by a summer program at Amherst College. This summer position was brief but proved formative, as she studied the burgeoning field of library cataloging and archiving. This era saw governments and institutions striving to organize and document vast historical archives, often accumulating centuries of documents left unordered in storage. In 1902, equipped with an advanced education and specialized library training from Amherst, Belle was recruited by Princeton University to work in its esteemed library and archives. Over the next 3 years, she honed her skills and gained valuable practical experience. It was during her time at Princeton that she encountered Junius Spencer Morgan II. Junius was the nephew of John Pierpont Morgan, then the most powerful and affluent corporate financier. Like many prominent figures of the Gilded Age, the Morgan family had begun engaging in philanthropic activities. Junius was a notable benefactor of the Princeton Library and Art Collection. Impressed by Belle's expertise, he recommended her to his uncle in 1905. The banking magnate sought a skilled archivist and librarian to manage his own extensive and continuously growing collection of books and documents. This appointment marked the beginning of a new and intriguing chapter in Belle's life. Long before its current status as the globally renowned Morgan Library and Museum, the origins of this cultural treasure can be traced back to the late 1850s with the young, ambitious J.P. Morgan. Barely in his 20s, Morgan was already fascinated by handwriting, meticulously gathering rare examples that ignited a lifelong passion for the written word. But this was merely the commencement of his collecting pursuits. As Morgan's wealth soared, so did his insatiable appetite for acquisition. His fascination burgeoned into an astounding array of rare books, ancient manuscripts, stained glass, exquisite drawings, antique sculptures, and much more. By the time Belle was introduced to him in 1905, Morgan's collections had become a sprawling, disorganized accumulation of treasures, a magnificent assortment of artifacts lacking any systematic arrangement. A library, after all, is effective only to the extent that its contents are accessible. Without structure, it is merely a building housing wonders that cannot be located. Belle, with her keen intellect and forward-thinking approach, stepped in to revolutionize the collection. But would she be capable of undertaking such a monumental task? When Belle da Costa Greene was engaged in 1905, the institution that would become the Pierpont Morgan Library was not yet the public entity it is today. Situated in a private building on Madison Avenue, it primarily served as J.P. Morgan's personal repository of valuable items. Belle assumed the role of Morgan's personal librarian, tasked with bringing order to this immense volume of material. Belle's responsibilities eventually surpassed those of a conventional librarian. She evolved into a trusted confidant and a type of personal assistant to Morgan. As the Morgan family's reputation for philanthropy grew, so did the number of individuals seeking financial support for artistic, scholarly, and cultural projects. Everyone sought a portion of the legendary banker's wealth. Belle, with her sharp discernment and keen judgment, assumed the role of gatekeeper. She became the initial point of contact, meticulously reviewing these hopeful applicants and their proposals. Only those she deemed worthy of Morgan's attention advanced further. Ultimately, Belle's close proximity to Morgan inevitably fueled speculation, whispers that their relationship transcended the purely professional. These rumors have persisted for over a century. At the time of their initial meeting in 1905, Belle was only 26, while J.P. Morgan was 68. Although married, he was known for his philandering and maintained numerous mistresses. Greene herself admitted to harboring a terrific crush on him. She never explicitly confirmed or denied the rumors. When asked if she had been Morgan's mistress, she reportedly responded, "We tried." Was this a playful jest or a cryptic acknowledgement? The truth remains elusive. However, considering the extraordinary trust and financial generosity Morgan bestowed upon her, one might conclude that their relationship involved something more profound. Belle eventually commanded an astonishing annual salary of $10,000, equivalent to over $300,000 today, an unprecedented sum for a librarian. Upon Morgan's death in 1913, he also bequeathed her a substantial $50,000 in his will, the equivalent of more than $1.5 million in contemporary currency. Why such lavishness? Did he make her a millionaire solely because of her remarkable professional contributions, which are undeniable, or was there a deeper connection between them? There is also the question of what Morgan truly knew about Belle's background. Although she presented herself as a white woman of Portuguese descent, she was in reality a black woman who had deliberately constructed her identity to navigate the stringent racial barriers of the time. Given the countless hours they spent together, working side by side, traveling, conversing, is it conceivable that Morgan was genuinely unaware? Or did he perhaps choose to ignore her true origins, captivated by her exceptional brilliance and charm? Regrettably, no definitive evidence exists to confirm any of this, leaving room only for speculation. The prevailing view today is that they were likely not romantically involved and that Morgan remained unaware of Belle's true identity. By the 1910s, it was evident that Belle's role extended beyond that of a simple librarian. She was effectively managing the institution and expanding its collections, although she wouldn't officially gain the title of director until the 1920s. As early as 1908, she was regularly traveling internationally to attend auctions and meet collectors to acquire new items. Morgan, with whom she continued to work until his death, and subsequently his son and principal heir, J.P. Morgan Jr., placed complete trust in her judgment, allowing her to spend their funds at her own discretion. Belle's particular interests significantly influenced the direction of the library and museum's development in the first half of the 20th century. She held a special affinity for medieval manuscripts, resulting in the Morgan Library and Museum possessing one of the most extensive collections of illuminated manuscripts and medieval miniature paintings globally today. A highly prized item is one of the earliest and most elaborately illustrated copies of Thomas Malory's La Morte d'Arthur, a renowned medieval classic. Belle acquired it at auction in 1911 for $50,000. In the early 1920s, Belle oversaw the transformation of the Morgan Library from a private institution holding events accessible to the public into a fully public entity. The Pierpont Morgan Library officially opened its doors in 1924, with Belle serving as its first official director, a position she would occupy for nearly a quarter century. Initially, it could accommodate only about 10 visitors at a time, but the library expanded with new annexes as its collections and popularity grew. By the end of her tenure, the library housed thousands of rare books and manuscripts, tens of thousands of artistic and museum objects, and hundreds of thousands of less rare books and manuscripts. Belle was not merely a trailblazer in her field and a formidable librarian and collector. She also possessed a flamboyant presence in New York society. She dressed elaborately, frequently adorned with hats featuring large feathers. During the jazz age of the 1920s, she was often seen with a drink in one hand and a cigarette in the other. She frequently remarked that being a librarian did not necessitate being reserved or quiet. She never married, likely influenced by the societal expectation that women abandon their careers for family life after having children. However, she did experience love. In 1909, she encountered Bernard Berenson, a distinguished expert on Renaissance art. The two embarked on a decades-long relationship that encompassed romance, friendship, and intellectual collaboration. They exchanged passionate correspondence and spent time together in Europe and America. By then, she was in poor health. When an exhibition showcasing the works she had acquired over the years was held at the library a year later, she had to attend in a wheelchair. She passed away a year later on May 10, 1950, at the age of 70, from cancer at St. Luke's Hospital in New York. The New York Times reported on her death, describing her as one of the best-known librarians in the country. Sadly, Greene destroyed most of her personal papers before her death, leaving many aspects of her life and work obscure. However, her correspondence with Berenson survived, spanning from February 1909 to March 1949. This collection represents the most comprehensive record of her personal life. Her legacy is immense. Today, the Morgan Library and Museum, as it has been renamed, is considered one of the world's finest libraries and art collections developed from private funding. Other than J.P. Morgan himself, no single individual was more instrumental in its development than Belle da Costa Greene. Thank you all for watching this video about Belle da Costa Greene. I hope you found it interesting. Please share your thoughts on her life in the comments section below, and feel free to leave any other suggestions there as well. I hope you are subscribed and have notifications enabled to receive all my videos as soon as I upload them. Thanks.